Welcome to today's Audit Tuesday podcast. Today we will highlight updates in what we know about the Healthcare hack. Change Healthcare, a division of United Healthcare Group, was attacked, which resulted in billing outages across the United States, affecting thousands of providers and millions of patients. There is a big update on the hack, and to discuss this update, we invite Carrie Jabs, a cyber and GRC expert. Welcome, Carrie.
Hi, Julia. It's nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see you. First of all, can you please introduce yourself to the Audit Tuesday audience?
Sure. Again, I'm Carrie Jabs. I'm a cybersecurity advisor, and most of my experience has been in regulatory compliance, management, security audits, and assessments. I have over 20 years of experience working on InfoSec teams for some very large organizations, managing compliance programs. I have extensive experience in risk management, PCI, ISO, HIPAA, NIST, and various local and global privacy laws.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's get started. First of all, did the healthcare hack and the shutting down the billing affect millions of patients?
Yes. So United Healthcare is a parent company to an organization called Change Healthcare, which processes insurance and billing for at least a third, maybe more, of all hospitals, pharmacies, and medical practices in the US. There was a recent cyber attack, which we have all heard about, of Change Healthcare. It was one of the largest, or it is the largest compromise that we've seen in the US to date. Although the extent of the full data compromise is still unknown, we still don't know and may never know exactly how many records or data elements were accessed, but the investigation is still going on, so I'm sure there's more to come on that. And you can always go to their website for the latest updates on the incident. One thing that Change Healthcare did that was really good was that they moved very quickly by cutting access to their systems. So once they became aware of the attack, which this may have lessened the impact of the ransomware attack, but the hackers were still able to encrypt a lot of data, which resulted in the shutdown of billing systems and activities to most of the organizations that they provide services to, which severely impacted millions of individuals in the US for several weeks, weakening a very important critical infrastructure sector in the United States. I should note that Change Healthcare handles around 15 billion transactions in a year. And even more troubling is that it touches 1 in 3 patient records in the US. So it is very possible that one, if not all of us on this Zoom meeting may have been impacted in one way or another. So in addition to affecting billing services, critical types of data that were also compromised, not just like PII details like names and addresses, social security numbers and financial information, but also protected information about individuals' medical history, medications, test and lab results, and other diagnosis, definitely things that people would prefer to keep private and confidential.
Okay. And Garrett, what was the recent update on the hack?
Up to the heck was that they, as Carrie says, they do forensics on this stuff. They say because the hackers don't tell us what they did, they don't tell us what systems they touched, they don't tell us when they entered. What the update is that the forensic investigation determined that they were inside the system. The people who did the ransomware that caused the shutdown, well, the enterprise caused the shutdown, were in there at least a week. So they were doing investigating, moving around, exploring in a nefarious and a malicious way for over a week inside the systems. That was the update.
Okay. And Carrie, reports say the attackers used compromised credentials and then conducted lateral movement to find data to encrypt. What does lateral movement mean in the cyber context?
Yes, so as Garrett mentioned, the hackers were in there for about a week. The the incident took place in late February, where the attackers compromised the credentials on what we know to be an application that allows remote access into Change Healthcare. So once the attackers were in, they were able to move or traverse or the network, or laterally move, as you referred to, around the network to locate and encrypt their targeted data. Again, this investigation is still ongoing, but I presume that after gaining initial access to the Change Healthcare system, attackers probably spent some time during that week, carefully moving around to see what systems they could access, using different types of mechanisms, like attack mechanisms like phishing, which would help them escalate privileges and allow them to gain access deeper into the network. They may have spent some time observing business processes and individual activities related to day-to-day operations to understand how the organization operates and what security controls at the time were in place or out of place, which would help them to easily find what they were looking for to launch their attack. And I do digress a little, but back to your question about lateral movement, this is something that security and cyber experts have seen more often than not with major breaches over the years. So the point of putting strong access controls in place means that even if an attacker does get into a network, these lateral movements and escalation of privileges would either be blocked or limited.
Oh, okay. And if the accounts they compromise are overly permissioned, does that make their movement around the enterprise easier?
Yes. So overly permissions are when users have too many permissions and unnecessary access. So in that case, any attempt to minimize a potential breach is being ignored, whether it's an intentional or unintentional. So also, it's one thing to note that it's been consistently reported for years in Verizon's data breach report that stolen credentials are the most common tactics used in a data breach. And having overly permission access makes it much easier for attackers to quickly and efficiently immobilize their intended target with malware and then use it for ransomware attacks that encrypt data and prevent normal business operations from taking place. Of course, this having these having overly permissioned accounts helps attackers achieve their intent and causes the most significant impact and damage to the organization.
And does Zero Trust say we should limit account privileges to ensure limitation of access to network and application resources?
Yes, 100%. So using Zero Trust security model requires that account access should only be given the minimum level of access needed to perform a job function. It seems like a basic concept, but based on my experience and others, I believe that this is where most organizations have been falling short, and not just recently, but for a very long time. This situation is very significant, and most organizations know what to do, but they just keep talking about it. So I really hope that, we stop talking about this basic concept and actually take seriously and implement the lessons learned from this incident with Change Healthcare, especially if they don't want to find themselves in the same situation.
And Garrett, isn't this what YouAttest does?
As Carrie says, this is a base operation. Everyone understands we should be doing this. We should be limited access, right? That's what we should be doing. That's what we're told. The principle of least privilege. Everyone knows that in cyber. Fortunately, it's easier said than done. And that's why YouAttest automated the process. It goes into your identities and then allows automatic attestation by the managers and the data and the resource owners to attest that those roles and those entitlements are valid, thus enforcing the principle of least privilege. So yes, Julie, this is exactly what YouAttest does.
And Carrie, isn't this important to compliance and GRC?
Yes, 100%. And as Garrett mentioned, YouAttest has an automated way of doing something that a lot of people have been doing manually for a very long time. It was reported in this incident that some critical access controls were missing from the environment where the compromise began, and that the systems were vulnerable to hackers escalating privileged access. So in addition to ensuring that all user access is based on this principle of least privilege, other things that can help these types of actions are network segmentation, micro segmentation, multi-factor authentication protocols, which is one thing we know was not in place at the time that credentials were compromised, and something that YouAttest can certainly help out with. But most compliance frameworks and certifications today, regardless of industry or framework, require this principle of least privilege. They want intrusion detection in place, network segmentation, and other mechanisms to mitigate the risk of unauthorized access to internal systems. And those controls are or should be regularly tested and formally audited. Unfortunately, compromised credentials are a typical pattern for hackers. So organizations should use frequent audits or assessments to ensure not just access controls are in place, but again, also, not to beat a dead horse, but keeping systems updated and patched is a major key preventative measure. And then one last thing I did want to mention as far as compliance, because, with some of the new regulations coming out of the government, is that I believe that United Healthcare at this moment is on track for following the Office of Civil Rights protocol that allows them a 60 days to provide a formal HIPAA breach notification report. So I think we're all waiting for that, but you can stay current on things like that and how that's going through their website for any kind of updates that relate to this investigation.
Okay, thank you, Carrie, for informing everyone on this. Can you tell the audience how you can be reached?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn or email me directly at carriejabs@gmail.com.
Okay, wonderful. And we at YouAttest can be reached at youattest.com or write to us at info@youattest.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you, Julia. Great stuff.